Right now, across organizations everywhere, something is happening that most leaders will not notice until it's too late. The people leaving are not the weak ones. They're not the disengaged ones. They are the people that you trust most. And here's what makes this so dangerous. By the time they quit your organization, the decision was made probably months ago. In a season where talent is harder to obtain and replace, margins are tighter, and leadership credibility matters more than ever before, losing your best people is not just frustrating, and boy is it, but it's expensive. It's destabilizing, and in many cases, here's some good news, it is preventable. Today, I want to talk to you about why your best people are quietly checking out, and what leaders like you unintentionally do, maybe to cause it. And more importantly, what can we maybe start doing now? What little shifts, pivots can we do right now to keep the best people that we can't afford to lose?
This is the Champion Forum podcast with Jeff Hancher, the forum for leaders, champions, and dreamers.
Hey, welcome back to the Champion Forum podcast here. Jeff Hancher here, and I am on a mission to help others lead, inspire, and win in this life. We're having this conversation today because I don't know how it is in your organization, and I'm not here to declare that it's a trend just yet. But I can tell you from my client base, from the research that I've done, peak performers are leaving more than ever before. Why is this? Well, it's more of a posture thing. It's more of a what else is out there? Is there a better alternative? Can I take my talents elsewhere? Look, this isn't just in business. We're seeing this even in sports. If you follow sports, professional sports, I grew up here in Pittsburgh. Terry Bradshaw was drafted to the Steelers. He retired a Steeler. Lynn Swann was drafted to the Steelers. He retired a Steeler. Mel Blount was drafted. Joe Green was drafted to the Steelers. They retired a Steeler. Today, it's almost unheard of. There are spots of it that's out there, but we even see this in the NBA. We see it across all professional sports. Senior people, peak performers, what else is out there? Is there a better deal? Is there a better coach, an organization? What else is out there? I'm coveted, so I should at least explore it. But let me ask you this question. Who's the best person on your team right now? Who is the best person that you have on your team? Not the loudest, not the easiest, not the one that you trust. I'm talking about the one who gets things done. Without drama, by the way, because some people can get things done, but there's a price tag that comes with that. I'm talking about that person that consistently gets things done, and they're not causing you a bunch of drama and headaches. Who is that person? Here's the hard truth. Most high performers, they don't quit loudly. They don't. They're composed. They're without drama, right? It just kind of shows up. It may even blindside you. They don't complain. They don't threaten to leave. They quietly check out first most times. They watch low standards that maybe are being tolerated. They watch poor behavior maybe going unaddressed. They watch effort of theirs going unnoticed. And eventually they ask themselves a simple question. Why am I carrying the weight of leadership and they won't carry it themselves? Now, I know if you're listening to this show, this isn't you, because if you're listening to this show, you lead at a very, very high level. But I'm telling you some of this today from some mistakes that I've made of my own as it relates to peak performers. I found myself getting very comfortable with peak performers because, goodness sake, they're winning trophies, they're winning trips, they're winning awards, they're making good money, I have good rapport with them. Why would they ever quit? And the reality is they would quit sometimes because they didn't respect me. And there were things that I was doing beyond leading them that made them a little bit uncomfortable. Look, I can share one of these moments with you that hit me early in my leadership tenure. Early on, I had this peak performer on my team. Very dependable, very committed, the kind of person that you build strategy around. This kind of person, right? It's like, get the ball to this guy because he's going to score. He was that guy. Never complained, never pushed back on things, never caused problems. When they resigned, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I remember thinking, what did I miss here? How did this happen? I thought things were so good. And when I finally had a very honest conversation with them, the truth was very painful but clear. And to this day, I'm grateful for their transparency, because maybe I wouldn't have become the leader I was and had a chance to be, because I learned a lot through this conversation. They weren't burned out, which often happens with peak performers. I'm checking the linkage there. Hey, was it just too much? Was the workload too much? Was I asking too much from you? No. They weren't worn down by too much work. They weren't worn down by doing more than everybody else. Matter of fact, they loved doing that because they really loved to win. They were worn down by watching me tolerate things that hurt the team. And yes, that was my leadership. I was a people pleaser early in my leadership. This guy said something that I'll never forget. He said, I got to a place I felt like excellence was optional. I'm out here doing my thing. I'm trying to drive excellence, but I feel like the standard is compromised with everybody else. And I just feel like I could take my talent elsewhere. Wow. Oh, by the way, they said all the nice things too, which was like, Jeff, you're a really good guy. I know you do care about people. I appreciate all that you've done for me. They said all the things, right? That's cordial. It's nice. It didn't erase the sting. That sentence that they told me changed how I led people. Here's what in reflecting on that, they didn't leave suddenly. I kind of felt it coming. They were kind of disengaging. They left after realizing nothing was going to change. And they were probably right, because I was a people pleaser. I was insecure as a young leader. I really didn't know what I was doing. I felt like if people liked me, they would do a good job. I found out that wasn't true. And the peak performers on my team, I started to slowly lose them. That experience taught me something every leader needs to understand. High performers do not wave the red flags. They don't. It's not their style usually. They don't demand attention. They don't want to create drama. They quietly reduce their effort first because they're kind of checking out. They stop presenting ideas. They stop pushing for better. They stop being the cheerleader of the team, not because they've stopped caring, but because they've learned that their efforts, they go unnoticed and they really don't matter. Most leaders assume that disengagement shows up as a bunch of complaining, a bunch of, I don't like how we're doing this. It doesn't. That's usually not how disengagement shows up. For peak performers, disengagement shows up in silence. Fewer ideas. You start to see their initiative go down. And you can feel it in your gut. You're almost scared to death because you're thinking of this thought of them not being on your team and what that would do to you. And leaders mistake this silence maybe sometimes for, them being stoic and them being stable. No, you should question this. Especially from a peak performer that's highly engaged. Silence is not always stability. It could be resignation. We got to check into this. Great leaders do not wait for the exit interview to learn the truth. That's what I did, right? We can't do that. We got to lean into this. We almost have to be re-recruiting our peak performers all the time. They protect standards early. The greatest leaders address issues quickly. They praise effort consistently. A lot of peak performers don't get the praise they deserve because we have kind of maybe taken it for granted too much. I mean, look, they've been here 10, 15, 20 years. They hit their best in class every single year. They lead in the stack rankings. They win the culture award, whatever it might be. And I'm not here to say that you don't appreciate them, but maybe we're taking them a little too much for granted. And so we got to praise consistently. And here's what the best leaders do. They never let their best people carry the weight of poor leadership. Man, if you're out there and you feel like this might be happening, I'm Jeff. I'm here to help you. You may not be where you need to be as a leader yet. You may not have that confidence and that strength. Be careful not to push that hot potato of your deficiencies onto a peak performer too much. When they feel like they're carrying the load of a weak leader, they may start checking out. Here's what that looks like in real life. First, they address small issues before they become culture problems. This is what the best leaders do. If I see it small, I'm going in. I'm at least asking questions. The best leaders don't wait for patterns to form, and now they got to lean into this gross discomfort. If it's small, they see it. They approach it. They step in early. They don't get worked up, because you get too worked up, you're insecure, right? And we don't want to come off that way, especially to a peak performer. But calmly and clearly, we're just kind of checking their posture. We're checking the linkage a little bit to find out, is everything okay? The next thing that they do is they have intentional check-ins with top performers. Now, the top performer is going to tell you, oh, I don't need this. Go take care of the low performers. Give them your time. I'm good. I'm okay over here. Now, look, I'm not saying to check in every single day. But just like you do for the rest of the team, there should be check-ins. And here's why, oftentimes, debriefs and check-ins, which you know I'm a fan of if you listen to this show, a lot of times we stop doing that with peak performers is because we want to save time and they really don't need it. I mean, goodness sake, look at their results. Here's something to remember. A check-in is not to fix them, but to ask, hey, what's getting in the way of doing your best work right now? How can I help you be better? What support do you need from me? What roadblocks exist that maybe I could remove for you? Is there any training and development? What would you do differently? Whatever that might be. But these check-ins are critical. The next thing that they do, they recognize these people. They recognize them not just for their results, but because they reflect the standard of the culture. Peak performers that have been peak performers for a long period of time, they have a nice trophy case. They're used to that kind of recognition. I'm not here to tell you that it gets old, but it can get stagnant. When you're thinking about how do I let a peak performer know that they're valuable, start praising more than just results. You know, it's like telling, my wife all the time, gosh, you're so pretty. Oh my gosh, you're so pretty. Oh my, you are so pretty. It's like at some point she's going to say to herself, am I just pretty? That's it? You never comment about my personality. You never comment about how I care about our family. You never talk about anything else. Am I just pretty to you? As great of a compliment as that is, it's very surface level. It's the same with peak performers. Recognize their efforts that reflect the standard that you're trying to build. Recognize how they're an ambassador of the culture, both privately and when it makes sense publicly. Reinforce what right looks like so others can follow it and use them as the standard. Because most of the time, your peak performer that's getting results with no drama, they fit the bill. And finally, remove friction. Remove friction and remove it fast. Peak performers get bogged down with friction and red tape and all of the things. If you can remove friction from a peak performer, you're going to let that thoroughbred run without any resistance. If you can do that, you're going to get some wins. What's friction look like? Unclear roles. Who's doing what here? Unresolved conflict. Inconsistent expectations. Leaders might be all over the place. What are we doing? Why does it keep changing, right? Great leaders see friction as their responsibility, not the team's problem. When there's friction, I run to it. I'm trying to remove friction, especially from a peak performer. High performers, I have found they're not looking for perfection. Now look, there's some divas out there. I got it. I might have been one myself, right? But they're not usually looking for perfection. They're looking for consistency. They're looking for a leader that they don't just like, but they respect. So here's my challenge to you today. Think about your top 2 best performers on your team. When was the last time that you genuinely thanked them for what they carry in your organization? And I'm not talking about, hey man, another great month, thanks for your efforts. I'm talking about a genuine, authentic, I appreciate you, and here's why. When was the last time that you addressed something that you knew was hurting morale, but hoped maybe it would fix itself? Because although this isn't a direct hit to that peak performer, it is affecting them. It's affecting their respect. You know, John Maxwell calls this the law of the lid, meaning the team will never go higher than the leader. You've become the lid. And when the lid is low from a leadership standpoint, like morale is down, like not addressing a poor performance or toxic employees, your leadership lid comes down. When you have peak performers that are in an environment where the leadership lid is low and they don't see any hope of it getting any better, they exit stage left. So you got to lean into some of these other things that may be creating an environment, quite frankly, that they just don't want to be in. These are marketable people that can go somewhere else and probably even get paid a little bit more. We got to create a great environment. And I'm not saying let's bow down to peak performers. I'm trying to give you some best practices that can help you retain them for the long haul. Your best people are watching what you tolerate. They're listening to what you're not saying. And they are deciding whether this is the place worth their best efforts. I learned this lesson the hard way more than once. You don't have to do it, right? You don't have to do it, but I can tell you this. If you want to build high-powered, highly effective teams, you get to do it. You absolutely get to do it. And I will be over here cheering you on every step of the way. Trying to replace a peak performer is one of the biggest challenges. Sometimes it's years in the making. I hope this episode challenged you a little bit to look internally and ask yourself, what am I doing to create a culture that peak performers can thrive, stay, and refer other peak performers to our organization? Appreciate you all listening in. Remember, retention does not start with compensation. It starts with leadership. Until next week, endear and engage your best people and never stop turning that pressure into potential.
The Champion Forum Podcast with Jeff Hancher. Lead, inspire, win.